All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the show. With you as always is me, Ben. Tonight, joined by tonight, I'm joined by a special guest named not the dog, Adam Brazil. Adam, thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, probably have to bear with the dogs every once in a while.
That's no, it's fine. It's mine is the same. My wife's gonna come in soon, and I'm sure he'll like lose it. And I'll be like, "We're gonna go to a break." No, it's good. Adam's currently Army, same as me. He does a little bit of a different job, but we'll get into that here in a little bit, as well as he runs the Hyde LLC, which is a custom, kind of like I don't know if you call it like a leatherwork store or a custom. I don't, what would you call it,
Yeah, like
Adam?
leather goods. I
Yeah,
do like design stuff too.
yeah. It's cool as shit. I'll put the link in the bottom, but it's badass. But for right now, Adam, tell me about yourself. Tell me where you're from. Tell me what the childhood was like and all that. The humble beginnings.
Yeah, well, uh, yeah, I'm originally from Washington, Eastern Washington, little town. Pretty normal growing up, outdoorsman stuff like that. And I think that's kind of what led me into the military. That's kind of what I wanted to do when I was in high school. So
Yeah, what was that like? Cause I'm from the country, but I'm from mid Missouri, so it's Ozark Hills. It's very it's a little different than Eastern Washington, like you said. That is mountains out there combined with rugged terrain, but beautiful scenery and a different kind of like hunting, fishing style. Were you doing all that kind of stuff, or was it what like how was that? Were you elk hunting, deer hunting, fishing a lot? What were you doing?
yeah, I grew up. Uh, shoot, as early as I can remember, I've been deer hunting, bear, elk. We used to go cougar hunting quite a bit, turkey, grouse, pretty much whatever you can hunt that's legal here. I've been hunting pretty much my whole life. So,
That's my dream. Like, cause all we get out here is whitetail and you fish a bit, but whitetail and turkey are pretty much the highlights of the seasons.
yeah.
What would you say your this is inside baseball shit, but what would you say your favorite is hunting out there?
So my favorite hunt is probably there's an early mule deer season. It's called the high buck hunt, and it's only the like wilderness areas are open for it, and it's about 2 weeks long, and so it's a I'll go out there for like a week at a time or whatever, just solo backpack hunting out there, and that's probably my favorite. Never really successful with it, but it's a good time nonetheless. So
No, that's
I like to
badass.
take guys out there with me sometimes too if they. I've in the past I've taken guys that had never been hunting before out there and just kind of introduced them to it and stuff. And yeah,
Yeah,
they seem to enjoy it.
that's a different kind of hunting too, because you're going. I mean, you're going. This isn't like a side by side ride to a place. You're walking out miles, setting up like maybe a camp or whatever, and then you're
Mhm.
hunting every day, like stalking, doing stuff, right? Like
Yep.
that's an adventure, you know.
It's yeah, and it's getting harder too because the advent of OnX and things like that. People are kind of discovering more of like the backcountry hunting scene. So, like this past season, I showed up at the trailhead that I normally go to, and there was probably 40 trucks parked there, and I ended up having to hike about 15 miles out before I got away from the crowds of people that were out there. So.
Damn, have you been doing that your whole life, like hunting like that, where you're trekking out pretty far, like with your
No, I
dad or
didn't really
whoever?
start that until we moved back to Washington in 2018. Uh, Most of the hunting that I did growing up was, on family friends' property and things like that, and the side by side hunting or ride the four wheelers out there and glass and that kind of stuff. So
Yeah. Um, that was always a big part of my childhood, so I get it. It was, or I understand like you can get so deep into the fascination behind hunting. That's like a whole thing in and of
yeah,
itself. It's so good. You go through that. You're in high school. What were your aspirations? What were you wanting to do at that point?
uh, I mean, the 9/11 happened. I would think I was a junior in high school.
Oh,
And
damn.
so, um, yeah, my initial thought was I wanted to go in the military. And then, like, the whole Jessica Lynch thing happened, and I saw like the PJs were involved, and I wanted to do that. Like, that's what I initially wanted to enlist as. But I got a couple scholarships for school, so I ended up going to college instead, which was not for me. I didn't make it a whole semester before I before I dropped out of that. So,
What were
and
your, if
then
you don't mind me asking, what were your scholarships for?
it was just academic stuff, and then I got a couple grants and things
Oh,
like that.
wow.
So,
Nice. And that, where did you
but
go from there after? I'm a similar situation with joining the military. I like lasted 1 year in college, and it was not. I lasted's a bad term, but yeah. What
yeah.
happened after that? Yeah.
So yeah, I initially tried to join the Air Force, and I was going in on a PJ contract, and then they nobody told me you're supposed to withhold your uh, any kind of like medical issues or whatever that you had as a kid when you're going through recruiting. So they knew about childhood asthma and stuff. So they were going to do I think it's called a methacholine challenge test. It's like a pulmonary function test to make sure
Yeah,
that you
yeah,
don't
the
have
breathing
asthma.
thing. Hmm.
They kind of strung me along for like, I don't know, 2 3 months, and then they were like, no, we're not doing that, and the Air Force isn't giving waivers. So uh,
Those
they
bastards, they're
actually
tight about it. They were tight about it for a while.
yeah, yeah, and they actually told me that if you get rejected from the Air Force, they're like, yeah, you're not going to get into any other branches either. And so I was like, oh, great, so I ended up working for the Washington State DNR as a wildland firefighter for a couple of years, and then just one day got a wild hair up my ass and walked into an Army recruiting station, and they're like, "We don't care if you got one leg, we'll take you."
How was? I don't want to skip over that though. How was it being a wildland firefighter?
It was cool. It's I actually hopefully I'll be retired next month. I actually put in an application just to go back as a crew member for the summer, just because it was a good time. So,
Hell yeah. You
but yeah.
that's like a whole can of worms. Holy shit. So you jumped from that. How what'd you enlist for? Well, and did you go straight active duty or?
Yeah, so uh, it was kind of one of those. It was like the last second kind of thing. I just walked into the recruiting station. They're like, "Oh, we can get you out of here, in 2 weeks if you take this contract." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, whatever. I'll take whatever." They gave me the whole spiel of, "You'll do this job, and you're always going to be attached to infantry, so you're practically infantry, kind of thing." So, which you don't know, you don't learn until you get in that you're either a pogue or you're infantry. So
100%. Yeah.
so yeah, I enlisted as a Bradley mechanic initially, and did that for about half of my career, actually.
That's it's one that I tell people a lot because I'm Seaburn, right? So like we never do our job, right? I'm
Yeah,
mostly paper bitch, which is fine. But like, there's not a lot of jobs in the army where you get to do it every day. I definitely feel like mechanics, they actually get to do their job mostly every day at least. Like you're actually working on shit or you have shit that needs done and people don't think they rely on you until they rely on you, but it's a thankless job, but it's important. So
yeah,
that's
yeah. Everybody hates you.
yeah. What were
No one
your
wants to go to the motor pool.
no fuck no I just, fuck no. I'm in a cab right now, and for those listening, that's an aviation battalion, and oh my god, I've never seen so many people not at the motor pool, and it's funny here because we get away with it, but it's nobody wants to fricking go, but everybody
Yeah.
has to go. Um, no, so you get wheel mechanic. Number one, how was that whole experience of basic and AIT? Because I don't know how long that is, but then number two, what was it like the maybe the anxiety or the thoughts of going to an entirely new place, especially from Eastern Washington to where you're going to go next?
Um, I don't know if there was much anxiety. I was kind of just excited to get the hell out of town.
Yeah.
it's it's a small town thing. You grow up, you want to leave, and then when you finally leave, all you want to do is go back.
Yeah,
So,
100%.
uh, but yeah, it was 6 months actually of OSET there, which was quite a long time to be with drill sergeants for that whole time, especially back in 2005. So
That's a long school. I didn't know it was that long.
yeah, yeah, and then I got stuck there for an extra month for an ASI too. So
Oh, they gave you that right off the bat, though.
yeah,
Oh no!
yeah,
For those that don't know, ASI is like it's like an extra school you get in the army that like you don't need to do your job, but it helps you be better at it.
yeah.
How so you do that? Was that just like kind of thrown at you, or was that in the contract or something?
So it was based off of like how you did through the course. So
Oh, okay.
like I was like the distinguished honor grad, so like the top like five guys got to do the ASI deal, which was like learning to work on the brand new Bradleys that were going to be fielded. So exciting stuff.
It's no, it's just funny because we're going to JLTVs now. That's all I'm thinking of. Like we
Yeah.
just keep going to new shit. Um, no, so you do that. That's good though. I mean, you already, like you said, you kind of brushed over it real quick there, but you were DHG. You said, which whatever, it's AIT or OSET or basic, it's still an accomplishment. You get through all that. Where'd you go to next?
I went to Fort Hood and I got stuck there for about 10 years.
Holy shit! It's the
Yeah.
worst. Fort
It's a
Hood
black hole.
for those that don't know now, it'll probably get changed back to pretty soon at this point. Uh, it's Fort Cavazos, which is down in Killeen, Texas. You spent 10 years there?
Yeah, they do this. So I initially got there, I was in 4th ID. And after my first deployment, 4th ID moved to Carson. And so my company and my battalion just reflagged over to 1st Cav and we stayed there. And then they do this wonderful thing where they just bump you down
Yeah, they
Battalion
move.
Avenue from one
Yep.
unit to the next. And then your time just restarts. So you never leave Fort Hood.
What did 10 fucking years? I can't believe that for that. You you get there, you're private, you do that. This is in when? This is
2005.
2005. So
Yeah.
it's in the middle of the deep, almost the surge bay. I always picture the surge as like 6 to 11. I don't know, like everybody has variations of it, but
Yeah.
you're in the middle of deep shit when it's going on. You got Iraq and Afghanistan at the pretty close to the height. What was that like jumping into that when you knew you were going to immediately rotate?
I mean, it was kind of exciting. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be, but yeah, it was. I got to the unit and immediately went out to the field. They were already out there. I didn't really even in process with the company. They just drove me out there with my shit and
Of course.
here's your guys. This is where you're gonna live for the next month. And then we did that, and then I think we did NTC, and then we deployed to Iraq in December of that year. I got there in July, so
Were you? Was it because you said you were a Bradley mechanic? Where I know sometimes this happens with mechanics. Did you actually have to do Bradleys, or were you working on other shit?
yeah. So I was one of like two Bradley mechanics in that support company. So I got assigned to our scouts in HHC, and so I was like their one mechanic over there for their four different Bradleys is all they had. So
Yeah,
they treated me like one of their medics. Like whenever they went out, the mechanic and the medic went with them. Kind of thing.
that's kind of it's always fun. I think obviously you had a tenured career past that, and I think in the media right now there's a lot of stuff about tier one, tier two assets, right? Soft guys, Delta, SEALs. But I think an unsung story is like those guys, right? Like in the middle of Iraq and Afghanistan, there were a lot of dudes that just had maybe they were called small time roles or whatever, but they
Mm-hmm.
were critical and they were fucking important and they
Mm-hmm.
just don't get the credit they deserve.
Yeah, and that's something that you kind of run into when I got to group. Like you got guys like X-rays and guys that didn't experience that in the regular army, and you got guys that kind of treat your support guys like shit. It's like coming from being a support guy, it's that you're the one doing all the damn work,
I
the
I was
shitty work, anyways.
I was at group for a year, and 90% of the guys were awesome. They were super kind and everything, and I was a brand new staff sergeant, so they helped me out a lot. But man, there is like I'd say 10% where they do not give a flying fuck about the support, and they're just
Yeah,
like, I don't want to hear it. So
yeah.
I get it. You're there. You already go to Iraq, and you said like what? How fast was it? Um,
It was about 6 months after I got to Hood.
yeah, very quickly. How long was that one for?
It was for a year. Did a year at Prosperity in Baghdad. We were in charge of the entry control points into the green zone.
Were you're just pulling gate guard basically then the whole time, or was
So
it
I
just
did a
moving?
lot of gate guard, and I did. So this is before they made like brigade engineer battalions. So the combined
Oh,
arms battalions used to have a company of engineers in them. So it
yes.
was like two infantry companies, two tank companies, and an engineer company. But they didn't have enough people to keep doing that. So that's why they came up with the brigade engineer battalions. Um, so they had like maybe a platoon worth of guys in their engineer company. So route clearance became like a DA6 type deal where you were on a roster and you went and rode in
Yeah.
the Buffalo and got your bell rung a couple times a day.
Yeah, because this is like you said, 0506
you
Iraq,
know,
and it's terror. For those that don't know, Afghanistan had it, but Iraq was heavily known for on every route. Most routes, heavy IED based tactics for the Taliban and shit. That for a year you're doing that. How was that experience for you?
I mean, I think you just kind of get used to it and you get complacent, for lack of a better term. You're just kind of, it's just a job, I guess. Um, it wasn't bad though. I mean, it was fun, a little bit scary sometimes, but it wasn't terrible. It was
You
a
get
long time though. I had just got married before we left, and my wife was pregnant. We found out right before I left too. So it was like,
I did a similar thing. I only have one deployment, but mine was to Afghanistan, and it was for a year. And my wife was 3 months pregnant when I left, and we already had a 1 year old.
you know.
So that whole thing. It's a it's, that's
Luckily, they were able to get me back on R&R,
yeah. I
and
had
she
same.
was for the birth, so that
Good,
was
good.
good.
Yeah, I made it like 3 days past the birth, but I still got there. It's
Yeah.
at least they give you that. But on it, sometimes a lot of these guys now with the 9 months, they weren't giving them time to go home,
Yeah,
which
no,
really sucks. You're doing that. I'm glad that went smooth at least, and you kept your wife. What you get done with that deployment? That's a whole year you're gone. What are your thoughts coming home to a wife and a newborn and all that?
uh, I mean, I don't even remember honestly. It was so long ago. I mean, obviously, you're happy to be home, and her and I had only lived together for 6 months prior to the deployment,
Oh
so it was
shit!
basically like we were, figuring each other out again, pretty much,
Yeah,
with a baby. So
it's so funny because those make or break you. A lot of those
yeah,
moments like that, it's a make or break situation. But you get done with that, you're back home. What's your next move? You know that you're basically like a year and a half or a little more over, or like 2 years. I think judging by what you said, you're about 2 years in.
hmm
Where do you guys go from there? Is it just reset and figure it out again, or
yeah. So that was when we reflagged over to First Cav, and then it was hot and heavy again because I deployed again in 2008. So we got back right before 2007. We're back for a year, and then left again. So the whole cycle prior to deployment, that whole year is field,
right?
NTC, JRTC, all that stuff. So um, that was pretty much the gist of my time.
You're between that, you did your third year basically training and your fourth year deploying, and you're probably close to the end of your contract at that point, right? So, what were your thoughts going into that? Did you want to stay in, or was it kind of necessity? Or
Uh, no, I think so. I picked up E5 really fast, like at 2 years.
oh,
So
good.
I was at that point. I was like, oh, I'm kind of fast tracking. I'll just hang out for the full 20, you know. So
And here you are.
yeah, here I am retiring as an E7. You kind
Uh,
of stall out,
well, it happens.
but yeah, that's a whole other nut roll. I guess we
No,
can
we'll
get
get to
into
that.
that.
Obviously, we'll get to that. And those that don't know, it's different, right? I, you got to explain it as like E1 to E5 is like a really quick thing, right? It can happen really quick for you, but can also fuck you kind of because now you have 18 years to fill of even staff sergeants pretty quick, right? Staff sergeant,
Mhm.
it that's like 5 6 years, right? So then you have 15 years to fill of three ranks. So I go down a whole rabbit hole about that too, like the whole evaluation system and the promotions. There's a lot
Yeah,
going on there. No, you made E5. You felt pretty good about it, so it pumped you up to stay in. You were kind of like, I can make
yep.
a career out of this. Did you re-enlist before you went on deployment, or was it while on deployment? Or
Uh, so I think I re-enlisted after that the second deployment because my initial contract was 6 years. So
okay, oh okay, damn.
so I had that
Um,
first deployment, did all the field stuff for the year, went on another deployment that was just shy of 15 months, and then
man,
re-enlisted when I got back.
they were burning people out back then with that kind of stuff, weren't? It seems, or it seems
Yeah,
like at least, you know.
it, it sucked because I mean, we were getting ready to come home, and then it was like unpack the unpack your shit, and we're gonna hang out for a little bit longer.
Do and then you go on that deployment and stuff. Did that one go just as smooth as your one previous, or no?
That one was actually pretty wild. That was we were on a outpost in a old sugar factory in Majar Al Kabir, and the history there was there hadn't been any coalition assets in that area since 2004 or 2005, and it was the Brits that were there, and they had an incident where some civilians got killed, and basically the whole town rose up against them, and they ended up killing a bunch of the Brits, the MPs that were there, and so nobody had been back there, and so we were the first uh, coalition unit to come in there, and we were getting rocketed and mortared probably 3 times a week. Um, Lots of IED stuff. Yeah, lost a few guys, and then it was bad enough that they would send us to Lille Air Base, still in Iraq, for R&R, so that you could go
Just to get that break,
decompress
yeah.
for like 2 days and get some actual food and sleep on a bed. So
That seems like a shit show. And then you were that. Did you say that one was for 15 though? Were you out there for
yeah,
the whole 15?
the first 3 months we were just kind of in open desert while they were building the battalion fob, actually, and then we moved from open desert outside of their HESCO wall to this little place about 30 clicks away, and that's where we stayed for the rest of the time.
Jesus Christ. I'm sure. Is there
It was
anything
fun.
significant that happened to you on that one that you remember? Like any deep stuff, or how was your wife doing through all this?
uh I think she was all right. It was a little weird for her this time because before I was on like a bigger fob, and we the video calling wasn't really a thing on that deployment, but this one it was, and we'd be talking, and then all of a sudden, you hear explosions and shit, and I'm like, oh, gotta go. And 2 days later, I finally get to call her back, and she's like, you know, wondering what happened, and I think she got used to it though after the first few times.
I think everyone when they hear that are like, a wife, hopefully, if you have a good one, when they hear that going on, or you say, I got to go, then it's just gone like that. They usually know. It usually
Yeah.
means something, important. Um, Man, so for the 15 months, did you have any more kids in between that, or was it?
Um, so no, yeah, my second daughter was born after that deployment.
Okay. So you get done with all that, you're still raising the child, and you're doing the whole deployment and stuff. You reenlist out, or you said you get back and basically reenlist, right?
Hmm.
After the deployment. What'd you reenlist for? What were your? I mean, you knew you were excited about staying in. Um, you got a family though now and a child. I know for myself, my thought process turned a little different at that point. What were your thoughts going into the reenlistment with the family?
Uh, I really wanted to get the hell out of Fort Hood, so my terms on the reenlistment was I needed choice of duty station. I didn't care about a bonus or anything like that. I just wanted to get out of there. And then they also offered to let me reclass too.
Oh, good.
Unfortunately, they
Oh,
reneged on both of those
son of a
options. So
bitch!
I
I want.
re-enlisted, and then I didn't get to go anywhere. And they my MOS became a star MOS, so they wouldn't let me out of it.
Oh,
So
I want to hear more about once you got fucked over here. I'm just gonna take a quick break, okay, and then we'll be
all
right
right.
back to it. All right, guys, quick break. Let's talk about something important, your old gym gear. If you're still working out in that old, stretched out shirt from high school, it's time for an upgrade. That's where Breathe Fire Apparel comes into play. They're not just about looking good, it's about showing up, putting in the work, and pushing past the easy route. My favorite, of course, from them is fuck the easy route right across the front. Their gear is built for people who take their training seriously, but don't take themselves too seriously. Comfortable, durable, and straight up badass. No gimmicks, just quality. So if you're ready to level up your workout wardrobe, head on over to breathefireapparel.com and use the code Benny10 for 10% off across the store. That's breathefireapparel.com. Use the code Benny10 for 10% off. All right, back to the show. So, we're going to talk about you going, you reenlisted for a new job in a new duty station, and none of that worked out. Tell me why.
Uh, honestly, I'm not sure. So the MOS thing was just because of the star MOS. They wouldn't let me out of
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
my current MOS. Uh, and then the new duty station thing. So that was about the time that our second daughter was born, and this starts a whole different shit show. Um, she was born with a congenital nephrotic syndrome, which is like her kidneys weren't working. So
Oh, man.
I spent probably 2 years on off and on emergency leave because she was pretty much hospitalized that whole time. She was either in the clinic for 8 hours a day getting infusions, and then at a year old they took her kidneys out and she just went on dialysis daily,
Yeah.
which we were able to do at home, but we still ended up spending a lot of time in the hospital. So that kind of like I think that's why I didn't end up PCSing because I was on rear detachment and dealing with that. So
Damn, man, that had to be a lot to go through, like personally, because you're trying to provide for them all, support them, do your job, but still be there for your child and everything. That's a lot.
yeah, for the most part, um, so initially the unit wasn't really great about it. Luckily, I had a first sergeant that was really cool, and he basically backdoored me into another battalion who kind of took care of me for a little while, as long as they could, and then I got moved over to another battalion, and then right about the time that she was getting her transplant, so right before her second birthday, and then I ended up giving her one of my kidneys, and then
I didn't even know adults could do that for children. That's awesome that you did that, though. Like, obviously, as a
yeah,
dad, without hesitation, but that's still
oh for
amazing that
sure,
you did that.
for sure.
So you're going through all that shit after the reenlistment and stuff. Um, Tensions are high. You're going through all that. Is it just eventually? I guess the 2 years. That was kind of blanketed, and then what did she was she able to like stabilize, I guess, or how did that work?
Yeah, she actually stabilized faster than I did. She right after the transplant, they had her in just like a medically induced coma for like 3 or 4 days, so that she didn't pull any of her tubes or anything like that. Uh, 3 days after the surgery, I was sent home, and I was laid up for months afterwards. I felt like shit for months. I was on con leave for 5 months, I think, and then
Holy shit.
on a dead man profile for basically the rest of the year. It was
I've heard about that though, where the donor gets it shittier than the receiver. It happens
oh, so they
frequently.
they give them the good kidney too. So the one that I was left with was it was only operating at like I was getting like 40-50%, kidney function for a while, and it was starting to look kind of shitty for me, but eventually it picked up. So
Damn. That's a roller coaster of like two you have two deployments, and then just basically 3 years of not only stress for your daughter, but then you recovering yourself.
yeah.
That is nuts. What what happens after all this? You eventually get better, I assume, right? You're
So yeah, it was the end of that year. I came off like they gave me a like your run at your own pace, work out at your own pace kind of profile thing
Oh yeah.
to ease me back into it. And then Fourth Brigade was short on bodies for an Afghanistan deployment, and so we had picked up a bunch of debt during that time, like with all the stuff with our kid. We were staying
Sure,
in
yeah.
Dallas for weeks at a time, and it's 3 hours away from where we lived. So I volunteered to jump on that deployment to Afghanistan. Uh, right after coming off of that dead man's profile, they were like, "Yeah, if you can pass a PT test, we'll take you." So I took a PT test, and yeah, a few months later, went to Afghanistan.
For those that don't know too, I try to throw in some understandables to the people that don't know. The reason he would hop on the deployment is because on deployments you make a tax-free paycheck and you get hostile pay, imminent danger pay. There's a lot of incentives for going over there, as well as you're not spending shit like
hmm
dumbasses do, but like for the most part, you're just you're buying random shit you like dip or cigarettes or whatever, and then
Yeah.
like all the food and everything is provided for you. So you save a lot of money and you make a lot of money. So I 100% get it because I had, like I said, I was telling you with my wife being pregnant, she moved. I was an idiot and moved her to a very low BAH place when I was on deployment. So they gave her BAH super low, and then we paid out of pocket for that move because I didn't understand how moves worked.
Oh, yeah.
So we moved her 3 times during my deployment out of pocket with no army help.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah, but to your point, the money from the deployment definitely helps and makes you feel a little stable for a while.
hmm
So you go on this deployment. This is what 2010 or 11?
Uh, yeah, it'd have been 2012,
Oh, 12. Yeah.
13,
Oh,
12 or 13.
okay. And you're still a mechanic. You're getting over there. Is this a 12-month again, or did they go down to 9 at that point?
It was 9 at that point.
Good. How was that one compared to your other two?
Uh, so we didn't have a place that we lived while I was there. It would have been 2013. It was when they were shutting down all the bases and stuff, and
Yep.
during that initial shutdown. So I was in an infantry company, and we were tasked with closing bases. So we did security for route clearance, and we would roll into a fob and take over their security and their patrols, and then they would DD Mao, and then we would hand it over to the Afghans, and then we would move on to the next place.
Which always went
So,
smoothly, I'm
oh
sure.
yeah, it was great. It was a great time.
You did it for 9 months. How'd that go with your your daughter who obviously she's in remission. You know, she's fine now, but had health complications. So I'm sure there's a stint of worry with that. And your other child, that your wife, she's dealt with 3 deployments at this point. How's that going with the personal life?
Uh, it went pretty smoothly actually. Her health was really good through that whole time, and then my wife also had our mother-in-law was living with us, and then um, her sister lived nearby too. So we had, she had plenty of help. And then, it's 2013, so everywhere you go has spyware computers that you can jump online and video chat with her and stuff. So it was, and I had a cell phone the whole time, so uh,
Yeah.
communication was pretty easy.
I went later on, but did you guys have like the pucks, or was it like you could just use a cell phone regular, or was it like the puck things where you could get
Yeah,
on the
so I
net
had
and
a
stuff?
just an Afghan prepaid cell
Oh, they
phone.
yeah yeah.
Yeah, and then yeah, the spyware computers. I don't know if they had those when you were there.
I
It was
didn't have
like
the spyware, no, but I was on Bagram, so you know
yeah.
we I had enough internet and stuff to where I didn't really have to worry about it. Um, you're doing all that. That went pretty smooth in 9 months. I'm sure it felt a little faster than your previous ones. You get done with that, and I know we're approaching a timeline here. Basically, you're at 8 years or so. So, what made you? What you get back? Was there a decision point to go to group, or how'd that work out for you?
Yeah, so initially I was planning on going to selection prior to when my daughter was born. So she was going to be born. I had a selection date for that fall, um, prior
Oh
to
wow.
the deployment, the next deployment that we had lined up with that unit before I went on rear D. But her medical issues, that sidelined all of that. So while I was in Afghanistan, we did some stuff with some group guys that were there, helped them out with some things. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna do it. And then basically, my wife is the one that put the boot in my ass. She was like, either shit or get off the pot. Like you can't, you keep talking about it, and just be about it now. Go to selection. So
I've talked to so many guys on here about how your wife is your biggest supporter, and the ability to do things is through her a lot. Like them kicking your ass sometime or believing in you is like all you need. And you're like, yeah, I'm gonna get this done now. Like
mm,
I it's like the honey-do list. You know, they put that on there.
yeah,
Like go to selection. You're like, I gotta do it.
yeah.
I gotta get this done now.
She's like, quit talking about it and be about it. So.
Yeah, hell yeah. So what made you want to sign up for that lifestyle?
Uh, that was initially that's what I wanted to do anyways with the whole like PJ thing. And then, when I joined the army,
True.
I just kind of took whatever uh, contract they would give me that got me out of there as fast as possible. So it was already something that I wanted to do. And then just working with those guys, like you see like the SF dudes while you're out there and you're like, those dudes are cool as fuck, and
Yeah.
until you become one,
Well,
and then it's just regular dudes.
yeah, but I'm sure, especially where you were the times you saw them in '05, I think '08 and 13, they were hot and heavy, especially '05
Hmm.
and '08. They were doing a lot of shit. So
Yeah.
I'm sure that pumped you up. You go to selection. How was that for you?
So it was actually easy because of the me having one kidney. It took like 6 months for me to get a waiver to go to selection, and during that whole 6 month period, I was doing the PT program with the recruiting station. You're only supposed to do it for like 2 months tops, but I was there every day for 6 months. So by the time I got to selection, I was running with the SOPSI kids and shit. So
Yeah, yeah. Is SOPSI? It's called. Is it something different now?
no,
I,
it's still SOPSI. It's the
oh,
special
okay.
operations preparation
Oh,
course. So
okay.
it's like the 18 X-rays.
Yeah. It's right before they go to the actual
Yeah,
selection, right? Yeah.
and they're
Um,
notoriously like way better shape than your army guys that are transferring over during selection, just
yeah.
because they have that long preparation course and they don't send them to selection until they're ready to go. So
How well? First of all, like trying to think of this. How your mindset going in? I hear a lot of like especially we talked about this earlier. The um, special operations in general, not just Green Berets. It's a little oversaturated right now in the media, like social media and stuff. People talk about it. They go, that was cake for me, or that was the hardest time of my life, or whatever. How was that for you? Going through the first of all the selection. We'll go through Q course later, but how was selection for you?
Like physically, I was good. Um, I was a staff sergeant, a new staff sergeant when I went through it, so that was a challenge because I had come from the regular army. You're dealing with privates and stuff like, and now I'm dealing with X-rays during selection, and you're doing team events and things like that. And I had a couple of times where uh, X-rays would come up to me and they're like, they're all gonna, they're teaming up to peer you bad because whatever, because I yelled at somebody or something like that. But I think that was probably the biggest challenge, was like trying to not be an NCO while you're there. Like you just need to be just the same level as everybody else as far as like the team goes. So
How do you feel about X-rays? That whole X-ray program. Do you like that, or is it kind of hit or
yeah,
miss?
I think it's good. I think I heard recently that they're lowering the age limit for it, which I don't think is a good idea. The whole point of the X-ray program was to get guys that had like life experience outside of the military. So you're getting
Right.
these guys. A lot of the X-rays that I worked with in group, they were lawyers, they were bankers, they were police officers, they were firefighters. Like all these guys that had like these careers beforehand, and they bring like a different perspective to the team. That's like a non-military type perspective, which works really well in special forces. Um, if they start bringing in the younger guys, under 21 or so, like you don't have any life experience. And then there's also the maturity issue too. Like we work in such a small team and we have such little oversight. Like everybody on the team has to be able to be trusted to operate by themselves basically without somebody holding their hand. And I don't think a 18, 19-year old has that ability. At least I didn't when I was 18 or 19 years old.
No, I get. So I was only a group for a year, and I got drill orders. And it was COVID, so I dipped pretty quick. It sucked, but I dipped pretty quick. And the one thing I can say is the guys that were in, they had done. I had a combat engineer. He did 10 years, and then he switched. And there was another 25 series. He switched. All these guys like you, they have true experience, especially during the GWAT area. They know combat. They know all this stuff that transfers really well, especially with leadership and self-starting. A lot.
Mm-hmm.
I only had like one or two X-rays I met that like came through, like got to the unit. I in processed them, and I'm like, they just seemed so different from those other guys. They're really
Yeah.
smart because they came from like a college background or something usually or whatever. Just so different though. Those other guys have such a tenured experience in the army, and I think that accounts for a lot. But I like what you're saying too. The lawyers, firefighters, teachers, and stuff. That your guys' whole thing is unconventional warfare. Well, bringing those minds in to help you guys think different is
Mm-hmm.
exactly what you need, and I think that's cool. Um, you're you go through all that. You get through obviously. Was there any hiccups going through, or did you get through no problem?
Yeah, no, I got through pretty easily. Other than I think I had one time where the cadre had to pull me aside and be like, "Hey, I get it. You're you know E6 or whatever, and this is a dumbass kid." Like, but you know, tone it down. But that was like
Yeah.
that was the only issue I really had. I didn't have to board at the end of it or anything like that. So
Oh, good. Now you get to for those that don't know, there's selection, right, where you go and I think it's 30 days for you guys, or how long? 2 weeks.
21,
21. Okay, so right in
21
the middle.
days.
Um, pretty long selection. The only longer one I think is CAG. You guys do that. Then you got to go to Q course, which for those that don't understand, selection's just to say, hey, we want you to be a Green Beret. Q course is this is the classes to get to be a Green Beret. You got to do all of them, and it's like a year to year and a half to 2 years, depending on how long. Um, he has to go back to his unit. You basically clear in like 30 days, and you go to Q course, right?
Yeah, so it took a little bit longer for me when I got back to my unit. So there's to go to selection, there's protections, right? So your unit has no say in whether you can go to selection or not. So you can be deployed to Iraq. If you have a selection day, they have to send you back to that selection.
Yes.
For the Q course, there's no protection. And so I had a brigade commander who was super pissed off that all these guys, after we got back from Afghanistan, went to selection and got selected. There was like 14 of us in the brigade, which is a pretty high number.
Yeah, I mean that's
And
yeah.
so he had kind of a little bitch fit about it and wouldn't lift the fence for any of us to get our orders to go to the Q course. So I was stuck at Fort Hood for another year and some change because there was a Korea rotation for that brigade coming up. So when they went to Korea, I was stuck on rear D doing day on, day off staff duty.
But they kept you on
Uh,
rear D. What?
yep.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Yep. So yeah, it was a year and some change. The fence lifted. My old first sergeant was the rear D sergeant major, and he was like, "Hey, your fence is lifted. Get the fuck out of here. I will help you do whatever you need to do, but you need to be gone in like 2 weeks tops." Like,
That's
so
good. At least he helped you like get out of there as quick as he could,
yeah,
transition. Yeah.
yeah, they had a Connex in the motor pool that had all the guys that had gone like AWOL over time. So there was like a whole bunch of CIF gear
Hell yeah!
in
You just
there.
throw all that shit in a bag so you can
He,
take it with
he
you.
yeah, key, and he was like, whatever you need to clear CIF, take it out of there. I don't give a shit. So,
Yes. I mean, for those that don't know too, CIF is a bitch. It's where you turn in all your military gear, and if it's they've lenient, I think they made it lenient now, but it's a huge
yeah, I
pain in
think
the ass. It's the
I've heard
biggest
it's
pain in the
gotten
ass you do.
easier.
It's probably like the biggest pain in the ass you do when you're ETSing, PCSing, whatever. It's fucking terrible.
I got my rucksack kicked back 3 times doing that because of a hair on it. Instead of just brushing the hair off, he drew a circle around it with like a chalk marker,
Yeah,
and it was like, now you have to wash it. And I would go wash it, come back, and there was like another hair or like a little piece of fuzz or whatever, and then he would circle it again. It was like I was about ready to fight somebody in there.
you get done with that finally. You finally get moving to Q course. First of all, what MOS were you assigned to?
18 Delta
Okay, that's a
medic.
medic, yeah, which
Yep,
is one of the harder ones from what I've heard, and it's a
it's longer.
longer,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a
Because you guys
year
come
longer
out as
than
a,
everybody else's.
do you guys come out as a paramedic or even over that?
So they do now. That started within the last couple of years. I think within the last year or so, maybe 2 years, they started. They come out with a bachelor's degree, a bachelor's of science, and you're a paramedic. So they've come a long way. When I came out, I the only civilian qualification I had was EMT basic,
Yeah,
and that was it, which is nothing.
yeah.
So
I'm looking at stuff right now, and it's everyone wants paramedic license anyway. They really don't
mm,
want EMT basic, um, but you guys still get pretty good quality um, combat care, from what I understand. Right? You get trained in that pretty good, or would you say?
yeah,
Or
so they uh, their term for it is we're trauma gods or whatever. You go through SOCM, which is a special operations combat medic course. At least when I went through it was 9 months of that, and then you graduate that, and then you go into the actual Q course. So the Q course
okay,
didn't start for me until after I was at Bragg for almost a year. Um, and that course is you start off, you get your EMT license, and then you go into anatomy and physiology. You do a couple months of that. It's all didactic learning, testing, all that stuff, cadaver, pin tests, all that fun stuff. Then you do clinical medicine, pathopharmacology, and then you go into your trauma phases. And then after trauma, then you do prolonged field care because we're expected to maintain a casualty for up to 72 hours with just the stuff that we have. So
Damn. That's a for those that don't know too. That's a long ass time to take care of someone. Like in a field environment, 72 hours. All you got's on you is a bag. Like that's a very long time. So I imagine that was high stress. A lot of learning from a fire hose, basically. Um,
yeah, it's super high attrition rate too.
yeah.
I think I started the class with, I think there was like, I want to say there's 60 something people in my initial class. And thankfully, I didn't recycle anything. And I graduated with 12 of us from that original class
Holy
of
shit.
guys. Yeah. So
Was there? Did they
it's
recycle them, or are they just
some people
done?
get recycled, some people are just done.
Yeah.
It depends on, what you failed or, the kind of mistake that you made. Um, yeah, it's such a high attrition rate. The Air Force, the PJs used to go there for part of it, and then they made their own school because too many of them were failing. And then now I think the Navy also made their own school because too many of the SEALs were failing the SOCM course too. So
Damn. It I'm conventional, so I've always just heard legends about it. You do SOCM, you get to the Q course. The Q course is, from what I understand, your CQB type stuff. I don't know if that's in there right. Your
so you start off with it's basically like another mini selection. It's called Gate Week. They called it IUW, Introduction to Unconventional Warfare. So you do some classes, and then you'll do all your gates. So you'll do the SFPA, which is a 5 mile run, your push ups, sit ups, pull ups. You get a 12-mile ruck. You have to redo land nav. And then I think that's about, and then there's like the rope climb and the swim test and all that stuff during that time. And you get guys that wash out during that.
yeah.
Then once you get done with that, then you move into small unit tactics, which is like your 10 level tasks for infantry, just your small. Um,
Yeah, it's leading a platoon essentially, or
yeah,
or a
yeah.
squad or whatever.
It's like Ranger School, but not Ranger School.
Yeah, yeah. How did that go for you? Because it sounds like you went through SOCM pretty smooth, and then you're getting into that. That's a different mentality. Did that go just as smooth, or?
uh, so I passed. It went smoothly for me, except for the fact that so you get assigned a cadre that's like your permanent grader through the whole thing. So at the very end of it, he does your counseling and all that stuff. Um, Mine hated me. He initially chose me to be. I was an admin squad leader the whole time. So anytime anybody fucked up, I got fucked up. Um, And at the end, when he was counseling me, he told me he was like, he was one of those guys who was really into like loudership over leadership, right? So
Oh,
like he
okay.
wanted guys that were screaming at people, yelling all the time, and that's just not me. Like I've always been the NCO that like makes people want to work for me, you know.
Hmm.
So like I'm not like buddies with you, but I'm not the guy that's going to scream at you and do that stuff. It's all built off of respect. And he basically told me I was a pussy for that. And he picked me because I looked like an asshole, and it turns out I was a giant pussy according to him. So, uh,
It's so funny too, because you're going in a group that it's the quiet professionals, right? Like
mhm.
you shouldn't have to be yelling at that point. Like
Yeah,
it shouldn't be that strenuous. It's either you get with the program or you're fucking done. Like
yeah, yeah. So luckily for me, both of my graded patrols, he wasn't there that day, so a different cadre graded me, and they both went perfectly fine. So Uh, but he made it very clear at the end, like he was like, "You're lucky I wasn't there because I'd have fucking failed your ass."
Jesus. You get done with that, you don the green beret, you're part of that. Where do you go first? Cuz you said when we talked, you're up obviously in Washington. Where did you start at?
Yeah, so I yeah, you finish your SUT and then you go into like SEER school
Oh
and then
yeah,
you do
sorry,
the
yeah.
actual special. Then you do the actual special forces medic course, and then you
Oh
do
shit.
Robin Sage, which is like your
I
culminating
knew Rob. I've heard
exercise.
about Robin Sage, which is kind of chaotic, but
Yeah,
it's like actually what you would do and stuff.
yep. And then 6 months of language school. And after language school, I was in one of the classes that was free fall for all. So everybody after language school, we went to free fall school, and then
What
came
sorry, real
back
quick. What language did you get?
Korean.
Oh no. That
So that was
that's
another thing. They everybody going to first group got Korean in my class because it was, during that time when Kim Jong Un was like acting a fool and
Oh
launching rockets
yeah.
into the sea and shit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so they were actually talking about they were going to start sending guys a group if something had kicked off that had finished like SUT. They're like, you're basically a Green Beret at that point. We'll just pass you and move you on to group because you're just going to be cannon fodder at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, we all had Korean. I see in selection you take it's called the DLPT, which is like the Defense Language Aptitude Battery or whatever, or the
Yeah.
DLab.
I
And
took it I took it when I joined or whatever, the one that like it's a fake
so
language, but it's
yep.
it's a fake language. It's the hardest test I've ever taken in my life to this day. It's bullshit, and they give you like the rules or whatever of the language, and it progresses on itself. And
Hmm.
but you hear people talking like the Sims, basically. Like
Yeah.
it's very
Yeah.
complicated. And you scored pretty
Yeah.
good then, right? If Korean, I think
No,
that's
no. I
no.
scored.
Oh,
That
I
was
thought
actually
Korean was
something
harder.
they made fun of me in selection because they were like, God damn, you barely scored high enough to even speak English. Like, what the fuck's wrong with you? So so they gave everybody, regardless of what your D Lab score was, Korean. And so it became this big deal where they actually had to do an exception to policy. Our scores to graduate were actually lower in Korean than everybody else because everybody was just getting murdered in there,
Damn.
and guys were getting recycled, and so yeah. So I've never been paid for language. I
Yeah.
graduated with a lower score than what the group standard is, so I've
Yeah,
never
yeah,
never gotten language pay.
that fucking sucks.
Yeah,
No, it's. I mean, Korean's hard too. It's one of the
it's
top. It's
terrible.
either isn't it one of the top ones or is it
Yeah,
number two?
it's a
Yeah,
cat 4 language. It's one of the hardest ones, and
yeah,
then like culture wise too, they're very prideful on like everything Korean is the best. And so uh what ends up happening with that is they attribute like a high attrition rate for um their OPI testing as like they're the best. It's the hardest language, they're the best. So they're very strict on their stuff, and they don't really grade off of the actual guidelines. So technically guys should have been passing that weren't passing
Oh,
just
okay.
based off of opinion. So,
Damn. Do, oh my god. And that wasn't in Monterey, right? You're doing all this at the JFK.
yep,
Okay.
yep,
And then your wife and your kids are there. You get done with all that. You go out to first group, right? Is that
yep.
that's your first spot? How was that transition? You got to go back home. You got to kind of get closer to family. Was that good for you, or did it not really
Yeah,
matter?
it was really good. Two of my sisters live on this side of the state, so we get to see them. My wife's really good friends with my younger sister, and then yeah, my parents are. It's like a 5 hour drive to my parents' house, so it's not too bad. I get to see them pretty often. Uh, yeah, it was nice. It was nice. I've never really liked the west side of the state, but you know, it's closer to my family than Texas was, so I'll
Yeah.
take it.
We what year did you get there?
2018.
Oh, okay. I just left right then. I was right behind you. That's crazy. You get there, you get to your first team. What's that like?
Uh, so you hear a lot during the Q course, like you're gonna get to your team, you're gonna get fucked up, like you know, new guys get treated like shit sometimes. I got to my team, and it was a team of senior guys who came to SF after being in the regular army for a long time. So it was like um, I came there expecting to get fucked up, and it was not that way. It was like, hey, welcome to the team. Like,
Hell yeah.
yeah. So it went pretty smooth.
This is 2018. So were you guys ramping up for anything, or was it more Pacific So also, sorry for those. I gotta throw in the admin note. For first group, right? They focus on the Pacific, so it's your from Korea basically down to the Philippines or a little further. I don't really know the
It's
nomenclature too well.
Indo-PACOM, so it's
Indo-PACOM.
India all the way into the Pacific Islands and then down to Australia as well.
Okay. So that's a interesting focus group because a lot of people. I was just talking to somebody about this. People don't know there's a lot of action there by actually Taliban and stuff like insurgent groups. They're actually involved heavily out there. So
Yeah,
you guys kind of
in Mindanao in the southern Philippines, it's there's several
yeah, and
insurgent groups down there, and then also through like Indonesia and Malaysia and stuff. It's very heavy Muslim population. A lot of people don't know that.
yeah, they don't think that because they just think islanders or small Asian people, but there's a lot
Mm.
more to it than that. Um, were you guys focused on that when you got there, or were you still involved in rotations to the Middle East?
So I got sent to Third Battalion, and they just got back from Afghanistan in October of that year. Um, so unfortunately, I didn't get to be the guys that went to Afghanistan the following year. Second Battalion did that, and then yeah. So our main focus was the Indo-PACOM area. I think I was on the team for a month, and then we went to Korea, spent a month and a half there, did some training with them.
As far as family style, was that better for you? Was it a little more stable once you finally got to group, or was it a little more up tempo?
It was a lot more up tempo. Since I've been here, I think the most I've been home was probably about 6 months out of the
Holy
year.
shit.
The, yeah, the last shit like last year and the year before last, it was probably 9 months away from home. So it's really hot, high tempo. You're either over in Asia, or you're out of school, or you're away doing training, or you're just out in the field doing training. So
Yeah, I mean that's the lifestyle, right? It's
yeah.
train, 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 or support. Do So you went on the Korea rotate. How was the Korea rotation compared to like, you're used to you got 3 deployments under your belt, heavy ones. How was this Korea rotation compared to that?
Uh, it was cool. It was my first experience getting to like train a partner force, um, and basically, we went there with like half of an ODA, and I was just kind of left to my own devices, teaching guys CQB and stuff, and um, yeah, it was fun. And then we did uh, some like the exercises that we did were based off of North Korea stuff, and they have like entire cities built there. We
Holy
did one
shit.
that there's like a subway and shit in there, and this is
Yeah.
like a simunition city, So
I knew there's subterranean stuff. When I was at JBLM, I was on a Seaburn. It's like a reconnaissance team that does like clandestine grabbing and
hmm
stuff. Um, that was a heavy focus for us with North Korea that they had subterranean stuff. So it's a lot. It's a big focus that is a weird um, AO like area
yeah,
of operations to work in that people really take for granted.
that was the majority of what we were doing was Seaburn type stuff there, like weapons labs and things like that, just training to hit that kind of stuff, bio weapons, things like that.
Yeah,
Lots of Mop 4.
lots of Mop 4. My first 3 years, I spent. We would do these missions, and I'd be in JS or full Mop 4 with kid on for 6 hours, 8 hours, and stuff, and
Yeah.
you're just sweating your ass off. You're like, "What the fuck are we doing?" It's
The first one
miserable.
we did, only medic on that side of the objective, and we took a mass casualty event. I had probably 10 different casualties that I was trying to treat in this hallway of a building in Mop
Uh,
4, sweating my ass off. Like my mask was filled with
yeah,
sweat. And
yeah. We we had a training rotation thing out to Virginia. It was West Virginia, out in this mountain thing. It was the National Emergency Training Center or something. And I had to do a mission, and I was on the initial entry team, and I crawl through this tunnel, and it's mud and shit. I took off my Kevlar, and I just put my I had a it monitors the oxygen levels and shit. I threw it in there. I threw a JCAT in there and a lamp, and I start crawling, and I got a tagline on me, and that's it. And then there comes like a guy, or it's like a rescue Randy laying like halfway down this thing, and I'm like, what the fuck? So they're like, is he alive? And I asked the OC, and they're like, no, he's unresponsive, but he's not dead. So they're like, you need to patient package him and get him out of there. But it's like this camera view of how much room I fucking have. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I cannot do that. And then there was a whole thing from that. But it's crazy what people make you do once they start putting on JS lists and stuff. They just think,
Mm,
let's make it as hard as humanly possible
yeah.
because that's what'll happen. And you're like, come fuck on.
It gets frustrating too. I actually got my team leader and my team sergeant got their ass chewed by our battalion commander because of that, because he was one of the VIPs that was walking around or whatever. And
Yeah.
it's pitch black. I'm under nods in Mop 4 trying to treat these casualties. And this random guy walks up and starts asking me what their battle roster number is and their
Oh,
blood
come
type. And
on,
I was like,
man.
I don't give a fuck. Get the fuck out of my
Yes.
way.
Yes.
And it turns out it was the battalion commander. I didn't know. I'd never seen him before. So.
That same mission I was on, my Warren on our team, he's a CW2. He's like on the radio with me, and I'm either a specialist or a sergeant. I think I was a specialist, and he's like, "You need to patient package him," and I'm like, I get on the mic and I'm like, I look like fucking Andy Dufresne from Shawshank in here. I cannot do that, and he's like, you need to get your ass moving. And then the OC, who was the company commander, was like, just turn it off, just turn it off for a minute. What would you do here? And I tell him, I'm like, yeah, do this. He goes, just do that, man. You're the one here. So that was kind of cool with the company commander backing me. But
Yeah.
you're like, when you're saying, when people start, they think they know everything or whatever, they get on that mic, they start talking. God damn.
Yeah.
Um, so you get done with the career rotation. What's next after you get back? You're at like 2020 or 2019 now, 2020, something like that.
2019, we went to Nepal next. That was pretty cool. Worked with the Mahabir Rangers there. Same kind of mission set, just training CQB, hostage rescue, stuff like that. Um,
It had to
that
be
was
interesting
when,
out there, right? Nepal. I mean, that's a
oh, it
very
was
interesting country.
awesome.
Yeah.
We got to do whitewater rafting in the Himalayas and mountain biking, and went
Hell
to
yeah.
got to go check out the Everest base camp, all that stuff. So it was pretty cool.
Damn. How's your family doing with all this? You're gone a lot. You're training. You're in random areas that they don't know shit about. Probably, they don't aren't familiar with it. And you're gone a lot. How's that going back home?
I think it was harder than the initial deployments, just because you're just gone all the time, and um, that was why I ended up getting out at 20. It was basically my wife was like, "Yeah, you're done.
Yeah.
You're done."
She's like, I put up
So
with this shit for this long. Come
yeah.
on. Yeah. It's amazing that you guys are you still married and stuff, right? With your kids
Hmm.
and stuff. I think
Yep.
that's I love that, just to hear that as a family man. I plan on getting out pretty soon, actually, in the next year. I'm only at 10, but um I find it awesome when guys put their families first and that they focus on them and that they make it work through all this shit, because it happened. You've seen it crazy amounts, I'm sure, as have I. The amounts of divorce and single
Oh
dads,
yeah.
single moms, and it hurts your heart because you're like, this kind of job, it just doesn't work with families very well.
Yeah.
So to see you succeed with that is awesome.
Especially this job too. When I first got to group, you'd sit down with your company sergeant major, and he like does like an interview with you basically, and then they kind of decide like what team you're going to go to, and you know you give him your background or whatever, and he's like, "You've been married for 14 years." He's like, "You can't be a real Green Beret unless you've been divorced at least twice," and so
Yeah.
it was always a joke, but
Yeah, it's the
yeah,
same with us. Like everybody says, you can't make E7 without Article 15 in a divorce. And you're like,
yeah,
that is such a dark way to look at this shit. What?
yeah,
Why are we
yeah.
supporting this? um, yeah. So you do Nepal then. That's another, basically year. You get back. What's the next steps here?
So I ended up moving to a free fall team, and then we did a couple trips. We did
Sorry, what team were you on before? Those that don't
so
know, there's I think mobility team, mountain team, dive team, free fall team, and something else.
yeah. So you have there's where,
I don't know why I explained that, Adam. I'm sorry.
so
You're the fucking Green Beret.
there's four teams that have specific infill platforms, and then the other two are mobility teams or ruck teams,
Okay.
whichever one you want to look at it as. So your one team, which was what I was on, was a ruck team or a mobility team, and we were also an ASO team, which is Advanced Special Operations. So we are like a pilot team. So you're like the team that goes in before everybody else goes in, and you set up networks and things like that. Um, I moved to a free fall team. So that's like all your halo jumping, and then like your primary mission is like special reconnaissance and that kind of stuff. But then you have like your MAROPS team, which is like your boat guys, your dive team, and then a mountain team. Um, but yeah, I went to a free fall team. We went to Thailand almost immediately and worked with the border police there, doing training them for like counter narcotic stuff, and then yeah, came back and then did some jump trips and did 6 months in Korea with them.
Do you like jumping?
Oh, it's a blast! Yeah,
Oh my
it's
god.
awesome.
I'm airborne,
It's
right?
only fun.
I only.
It's only fun
Oh
if
my
you're
god.
jumping slick, though.
Oh yeah. I uh
it's
I only got to jump 7 times basically with airborne school, and then with group I jumped twice, and then COVID hit, so we had no jumps, and then I
yeah.
PCS, and I was so fucking scared every time. I never get out, guys. It's insane, man. Jumping out, and especially Halo, you're just jumping out and falling for a while, and then pulling it.
So static line freaks me out. Static line is terrifying because you
Yeah.
don't have a lot of time to fix problems. Uh, most of our jumps aren't halo. Like everybody knows about halo jumps, like the high altitude, low
You
open.
guys are
You
hey-ho
free fall
mostly,
for
right? The
most of our stuff is hey ho, so that you can do a standoff. We'll fly our shoots for 30, 40 clicks or whatever to the drop zone. Um, that way you don't have the signature of the aircraft or whatever. It's I think on radar, a free fall team under parachute looks like a group of like geese or something like that is
Oh
what it
wow.
comes up. The signature it comes up as. It's pretty small. So that's like our primary thing. And then most of the jumps we do, your combat equipment with
It's a lot of
your
shit.
rifle and a javelin and a medic.
Yeah.
I have my a bag and my rucksack.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of shit, and it's hard to fly with a lot of shit too. I've had
Yeah.
some interesting experiences where you jump out of the plane and you immediately get flipped on your back, and then
Oh
then
my
you're
god.
fighting and
Trying to
trying to
flip
trying
or
to fix
whatever.
yourself
Yeah.
and praying to God you get over in time so you still have enough time to make it to the drop zone. And
Fuck, man. Um, you jumped a lot with them though. You got to do that a lot then to focus on it really, or
yeah, so you do. It's called a level one. So um, every couple of years the team has to do the level one training, and that gets everybody on the same page because you have new guys that just came out of jump school, and then you have guys that have got like hundreds of jumps. I was pretty new. I only had 22 jumps when I came to the team, and yeah, we went to Arizona and did a jump trip with the Japanese, the JSOG. They're um, special operations group guys. They're super proficient. Those guys, some of those guys have thousands of jumps.
Damn.
Um, so we trained with them, and I think I'm like just shy of 100 jumps right now. So
Nice.
you in like a month, you're doing like damn near 60 jumps while you're there. It's ridiculous.
What
It's 2 3 jumps a day.
and 2 to 3 jumps is a lot because you're jumping out of the plane. You're basically grabbing your stuff. You're going back to the OP, and then you're kind of restaging real quick. Like 3 jumps
You got
is
to
a lot.
pack your chute and
Yeah, and so that I wanted to ask because I've always been curious about it. I heard a lot of free fall stuff's done out in Arizona and or New Mexico or why is that? Just because there's open ground there, or what's the deal?
Uh, I'm not really sure. I think maybe just because of the weather. Um,
Oh.
it's pretty calm, and most of the time it's clear skies. So they don't let us jump through the cloud deck. So if it's
Oh,
cloudy,
okay.
then the jump gets canked. Um, I mean, sometimes you get to. I think I've only done like 2 jumps through the clouds, and both of them were halos, and it's not a fun jump to do. Clouds actually hurt when you're falling through them, and
It's just water,
uh,
right? You're pushing through water
oh yeah,
essentially,
and
right?
it's like ice, and it burns your face, and you don't know where anybody's at, and you just have to hold what you got and hope that you
Damn.
don't collide with anybody.
You're doing all this. This is like 2019, 2020, 2021, or no, we're probably up to like 2022 now, right?
22, yeah, 22, 23, and then 23 I went to Korea, spent 6 months there doing that, and then came back and started working on my retirement.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. Number one, um, how did you get in? Let's talk about the hide. When did
Okay,
you start that? When did you get into that?
so probably I started it officially the end of 2024 when I got back from Korea. Um, no, the end of 2023. Sorry, end of 2023. I started it officially. Got the LLC. 2 years before that, um, I had ordered hats as a Christmas present for the ODA. Me and the captain went uh, half and half on it, and I never realized how expensive that shit was. It was
Yeah.
we probably both came out of pocket like $300 for that,
Yeah.
and so I started looking around, and I found on Amazon just a cheap laser engraver that was the same price as what I just spent on the hats. And I was like, well, I can learn how to fucking do hats. Like, and so I just started screwing around with it and making team patches. And then I did a round of hats and everybody liked them. And then uh, other ODAs started asking me to make them for them. And then people were like, you should start a business. And then when I came back from Korea, I just started a business. So,
Is it with your hats? Is it obviously laser engraving on the leather? Are you
mhm.
sewing that into the hat, or is that a patch, or how's that work?
Yeah, so all the patches, so I've never really been a fan of like the laser cut patches. Like I don't like the way they just look kind of generic. So all the patches I do, they all start off as just regular a sheet of veg tan leather. It's just regular tanned leather. I do all the dyeing, I hand cut them. I burnish all the edges on the patches, which is a lot of work for a hat patch, but I like the way that it looks, and I think people like the way that it looks. Like it looks like it's handmade. And then yeah, I started off just hand stitching all of them to the hats, and it
Damn.
was a lot because I was getting orders of like 30, 40 hats, and it was days of just sitting there
Yeah,
stitching.
sewing it. Yeah.
Yeah. I eventually was able to get a sewing machine, so I've got a stitcher that I use for that.
And do you have you grown that pretty good from basically like your teams and stuff, and then you grew it out to? I mean, obviously, because that's how me and you met. We met on Instagram and stuff. But was that? Are you getting orders now from around different areas and stuff?
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't know what really brought it on. So I started the Instagram and was kind of leaning really heavy on like the military influencer pages and stuff, and was like pushing my shit to them and asking people to share it, and started building a follower count. And I got a order from a U.S. Marshal Task Force. Uh, I did a bunch of hats for them. They sent me some pictures of them wearing the hats, and I posted that. And then I don't know if the IG algorithm picked that up, but all of a sudden I started getting swamped with SWAT teams, another U.S. Marshal Task Force,
Oh
a
yeah.
million different sheriff's offices, police departments. That's like 99% of my stuff that I do is all law enforcement now.
Yeah.
So,
I wonder. I sometimes, like you talked about with the veteran thing, you sometimes lean on it and stuff. And I did that at the beginning. I was originally just interviewing military people, but then you kind of realize there's a different outlet. You don't have to hyper focus. Do you feel sometimes that military guys kind of lean on that too heavy when they get out? Their businesses, they really lean on the veteran thing as like that's their personality and that's who they go for.
yeah, yeah, I think so. I think I'm probably guilty of it too. If you peruse through my Instagram, I still post like the moto videos of us jumping out of planes and things like that. And, right there in the bio, it's Green Beret owned, so uh, I'm guilty of that as well.
Yeah, but I
Uh,
wouldn't
I,
call yours
I,
like hyper focused on military. I mean, obviously your orders are coming from military, so it's a little different. I just think that like especially my avenue like podcast and stuff, the podcast industry has just become insane with it.
yeah,
I just wish guys wouldn't have that as their personality, which talking to you that's not like your entire personality or anything, but
yeah.
you notice guys like that, like that's their whole life is the military, and that's all their experiences.
There's a few pages I see out there that are like that. Um, but I mean, I think it's easier. It's nice to still be kind of connected to the community because I'm in right now with the retirement stuff. First Group has this new program where they move you off of a team and they put you in a transition platoon in HHC, so you have no job. So my entire job consists of just doing whatever I need to do to get out, and I just text in the morning and let them know that I'm still alive. Um,
That's
so you
good
kind of
though.
get disconnected from the whole thing. It kind of gets you used to being retired. I think that helps out a little bit, but it's also a little bit isolating. So it's kind of nice to have that little bit of tie with the military community. But I can definitely see some places leaning really heavy on that or making their entire personality that.
Yeah.
Lots of coffee companies and
Lots of coffee company. There's so many coffee companies. I oh man. You you start that process. You start retirement. What's your thought process on getting out now? Where do you go from here?
uh so over the last year I've just been doing the business. I didn't really have any plans to go to school or anything like that. I really just wanted to be retired and do this. Um, I think it's still kind of a viable option to supplement my retirement and disability and stuff, but I've kind of found myself getting a little bit bored just working at home. Uh, my whole life, like my whole adult life, has been either firefighting, the military, and now it's just I'm in my garage sewing hats. So found myself getting a little bit bored, and I actually last week just submitted an application to our county sheriff's department and uh, test for that at the end of the month. So
Good.
hopefully
That's yeah.
move on to that and see if I like that or not.
Well, it looks like you still want to actually get back at least. You know, you're looking at law enforcement. You said you're looking at wildfire as well.
Yeah,
You're at least providing support still to the nation and
yeah.
stuff, and that's always good. How's the family doing? Are they excited for the retirement?
Oh yeah, it's actually been really nice being able to pretty much build a relationship with my kids because I've been gone so much. I'm just kind of the guy that comes in and then leaves, and then your dad, but you don't get to actually really be a dad when you're doing the 9 months away every year kind of thing. So I've been able to go to my all of my daughter's theater events and my other daughter's volleyball. I'm actually coaching her softball team this year, so um, actually get to be an active part of their life, and it's nice.
Hell yeah. Where do you see the hide? Where do you see that going in 5 years? Where do you want to get it? Are you wanting mass thing, or you want to keep it like small? Because what you're doing is such a meticulous thing, and you're keeping it. Um, you're very what do you call that? Kind of bespoke with it, I guess. Like very,
Hmm.
where do you see that going?
I like the way that it is right now. Um, I don't think that I ever really want to get into like the mass produce kind of stuff. Um, uh, the hat thing is kind of it's like the easy money thing. That's like the popular thing that's going on right now. My favorite part of it is like the actual leather work. So if you look through the page, there's some things that I did where like I've actually carved and you know done some stuff like that, and
Yeah,
that's
the
my favorite part of the leather work. But
the belts look so intricate. They look so fine tuned and stuff, and then there's stuff for guys' belts that I've seen you
yeah,
make that I mean they are, that is hand quality production, and it's awesome, man.
yeah. I think right now I'm kind of experimenting in making more like outdoor stuff. So like one of the very first products I made that was not a hat was I have a bird dog. I like to go pheasant hunting, and they wear chest protectors for them, to keep them from getting impaled and things like that when they're running the field.
Yeah.
Um, So I made my dog one that's leather. It's a leather chest protector with an orange backing on it, and that was like one of the first things I made, and that was actually pretty popular for a little bit, but it kind of died off. Um, but I think I'd like to get into more like outdoor hunting stuff. I want to make like a bino harness, just um, I like the idea of like the bespoke stuff, like keeping the leather portion of it, so being able to still carve designs in that they're looking for and things like that, and it's not just a generic bino harness. Or I've got a friend right now who's a sniper with our first group Criff, who's having me uh, make some modifications to one of his packs and things like that, and add some leather to it. So that's kind of where I'm experimenting right now.
Yeah, that's badass, man. I can't wait for you to take off because I know you will, but in a modest way to where you're meeting your vision. I think your years of service to me is a model of it. The biggest takeaway I had was, and it's odd, but the family portion is just to me is just so big. So I appreciate hearing all that, and I honestly just appreciate you coming on, Adam, to tell your story to everybody, to promote the business, but more importantly, to show a different side of how the Army functions. I think it was really good, and I can't thank you enough for having coming on here.
Yeah, I really appreciate you having me on, man. It actually kind of caught me by surprise when you asked me to come on. I was like, oh, go on a podcast. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you told me your voice was
Because
like boring or whatever, and I'm entranced every step of the way. So this
yeah,
no, it's good, man.
I've had a lot of negative critiques during briefings from commanders telling me that I put them to sleep. So
They're stupid. You're stupid,
Yeah.
Commander. Yeah. All right. Adam, thank you so much for coming on. Guys, thanks for listening. Tune in next time. Thank you.